Alright, so I'm going to just do a tactical analysis of the current formation of AC Milan, as well as go over what I think we should be doing here. So, as most people who have been following Milan pretty closely probably know by now, we have recently switched to a 4-4-2 formation after the introduction of recent signings, most notably Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And that's mainly because he's going to be playing a lot better with somebody playing off of him, whether it's a Rafael Leao or an Ante Rebic, rather than playing as that sole striker, since at his age he probably can't carry that load anymore. He'll probably still do okay if we were to go back to like a 4-3-3, which is what we were doing in the past, or even if we moved to like a 4-2-3-1, which is one of the formations that I do prefer. So that being said, let's kind of look at the positives and negatives. The good part about the 4-4-2 is, as already mentioned, it puts Ibrahimovic up there with a striker who is more mobile, who is more, I guess, gonna give him better runners. Since Zlatan is great at heading the ball down, kind of flicking on the ball to continue play, and kind of launching these guys so they can run into space, which then in turn opens up space for Zlatan. So this all works very, very well as far as a two-striker system. That being said, when Zlatan's not in, it doesn't really work very well. I would have liked to see Piatek play in this system a few times and see how he would do with somebody next to him, but he didn't really have that good of an opportunity to do that, which, if people remember, he was very successful at Genoa in a two-striker system with Kouame. So that aside, next, I think it benefits a little bit of the midfield. Not necessarily for Benacer. I think he could play in a two-man pivot versus a three-man midfield, whichever way that you want to stack it up, either two behind one or one behind two. I think he'd do fine anywhere. He's just a good, solid player, good low center of gravity, good passer, quick thinker, and he's getting better and better. And I think he was a fantastic signing. I mainly think it's better for Franck Kessié. Franck Kessié was really out of sorts and not really the player that we thought we had signed from Atalanta. He's always solid. He never really plays terrible, but he just wasn't offering much. And truthfully, I thought Timoya Bakayoko outperformed him drastically, and I actually wish that we would have sold Kessié and kept Bakayoko, because when he was on, he was dominating the midfield for Milan. And he was one of the bigger reasons under Rino Gattuso that we were doing so well, is because that midfield was solid because of him. So that aside, I think this benefits Franck Kessié because he doesn't have to worry about going forward, playmaking, creating, and being that kind of box-to-box guy who, even though we all want him to be, he's just not. I think Franck Kessié can do it here and there because he's got a lot of energy and stamina, but he needs to do that seldomly. Primarily, it's nice for him to kind of watch out for Benacer, break plays up, use his strength, really get in there, and be more of a primarily defensive midfielder, but with the freedom and ability to push forward here and there. I think that has been the biggest benefit to the midfield there. Out wide on the wings, I don't think it actually makes too much of a difference. I actually think it may be a little bit of a harm, because while Samu Castillejo is fine because he can either play right mid or right wing, I don't think it matters for him at all. I do think that is a little bit of a negative for our left wing, because Jack Bonaventura, really at this day and age, he's a little bit older now, he needs to be closer to goal. He's not the best left mid. He doesn't have the best defensive instincts. He's okay at it, but his energy kind of runs out when he's doing all that backtracking. He needs to be just doing a little bit of that and primarily being a creative force going forward. If you saw, he's played some stellar games for us since coming back, but the best games is when he was played up top on the left side of a 4-3-3, to where he can cut inside, shoot, create. He's closer to goal, closer to link the attack. Once you put him in left mid, he loses that connection between midfield and attack, so it's not really good for him. Hakan Çalhanoğlu can also do it, but this is a guy who's been played out of position his entire Milan career, and he's just not a winger. I know he can play there and he's played there before, but that's not his position. In order to have a left mid, you need somebody who's going to work tirelessly up and down the flank, and I think a key characteristic is having a guy who can beat their man for pace and beat them one-on-one. That is not something Hakan Çalhanoğlu was ever really going to do. He's creative, has a good first touch, has a good long shot, and some good passing. That type of player needs to be more central, more like an attacking midfield free roaming role. That's where he needs to be. And unfortunately, with the 4-4-2, it puts him on the left, not so great. Yes, we can play Rafael Leao on the left mid, also not ideal. He should be closer to goal, ideally center forward, to play off of Ibra. or left wing in a 4-3-3. Ante Rebic, same thing as Leao. Rebic is probably better suited for left mid because he works harder, he has a higher work rate, and I think he's probably him and Çalhanoğlu are probably going to trade off at that left mid spot. But once again, Rebic is better more up top, either left wing or as a center forward playing off of Ibra. So I don't think that it really helps that out. As far as the back four goes, I think it's fine. No real big change there. So 4-4-2 has definitely helped us give us some stability and consistency. But what I really want to get into today, I'm going to briefly touch on one formation that I think should be our kind of long-term goal, which I think is the 4-2-3-1 formation, because it puts that guy right behind the striker, ready to kind of branch off of it. I would like to see that when Ibra goes, maybe we pick up Andrea Belotti, who can play that central striker role alone, and then we have the guy behind them, whether that's a Rebic, whether that's Lucas Paqueta, getting him back into the fold in a role that he would fit in. Hakan Çalhanoğlu there, Jack Bonaventura, putting them in better positions for them. But that would mainly be for the future post-Ibra. While we're playing with two strikers, I actually think the best formation and what I think would be the final piece to the puzzle for this current Milan would be a 3-4-1-2 formation. So the only difference here now is that we've sold some of our kind of quality in defense and our depth. So in order to run a three-man defense, we would have Romagnoli on the left, Simon Kjaer in the middle, and Matteo Musacchio on the right side of that three-man defense. Calabria could play on the right side. He's much more defensively oriented than Andrea Conti is. Stronger too. Ricardo Rodriguez is pretty decent in three-man defense on the left side, but he has been sold. And additionally, while we do have Gabia and Duarte is injured, we should have kept Mattia Caldara if we were going to do this. If we had kept Caldara, I would say, hey, this could be good. But this is probably the biggest problem that I see with this formation. Otherwise, as we'll go forward, I think this is what works the best for the team. Okay, so as far as moving up into midfield, I think this actually helps out midfield a little bit as well, because as we saw against Hellas Verona, they would just attack straight through the middle. There's this big gap because we're playing with wide players and two midfielders. And our strikers are not really the best at backtracking and covering those gaps. If you had somebody like an Edinson Cavani or a Andrea Belotti who does those types of things, fine. But we have Rafael Leao and we have Zlatan Ibrahimovic. They're not really backtracking players. Ibra will sometimes back off into a false nine because he likes to create and he can do that. But that's not because he's trying to play defense or help out. So there's this massive gap in the middle of the pitch between the attack and our defensive central midfielders, especially with our left and right mids being played out wide. And that's all Hellas was doing, just coming straight through the middle, driving through, and that's where they were getting their opportunities, as well as off of our right flank, because that seems to be the weaker side, as we have seen. So how do you fix this? When you move to the 3-4-1-2, you're putting one extra person in midfield, and I would suggest to do kind of two behind one. I would suggest playing Benacer and Kessié as two people in front of defense, and then right in front of them, kind of in the center, you have a lot of options now. It opens up everything. This means you can start playing. You can play Hakan Çalhanoğlu back in the position that I really think he's meant to play, in that center attacking mid spot, which I think would open up his game drastically. He wouldn't have to try to beat guys for pace anymore. He wouldn't be isolated to the left side. He could actually create, take his long shots, link midfield and attack, and try to help give some nice through balls for the runners like Rafael Leao, or he can give some nice through balls to Zlatan as well. Or the beautiful thing about this is it also opens up players who we're not getting the best out of at the moment. One person in particular is Lucas Paqueta, who I think is a very, very talented individual, but I think positionally he's very limited. He either needs to play in a three-man mid where he's one of the right or left side, but more central, or ideally in this spot as more of a central attacking midfielder who still has people in front of him to take the pressure off. I think this would really be an enlightening position for him. He would have a lot of freedom. He'd be able to link midfield and attack. He takes good, quick snapshots. He's very creative with the ball, and I think I would love to see what he could do with having a willing runner like an Ante Rebic or a Rafael Leao in front of him, and then having Zlatan to play off with. I think this would be beautiful. And finally, the third position, or third player for this spot would be Jack Bonaventura. I think this day and age in his career, he would belong more in this position rather than being played as a left mid where he has to do way too much up and down the field, and it's just not working for him right now. Additionally, I believe this actually helps who would be technically our wing backs, your left-sided wing back and your right-sided wing back. Why is this? One, on the left side, you'd be putting Theo Hernandez there. So this would kind of be in line with Benacer, in line with Kessié, going straight across, which is one line in front of defense. So you have your left side. Theo Hernandez now being there means that, yes, he still has a ton of defensive responsibility, but now that he's not on the back four, he can really get forward a little bit more, and he's been such a good attacking threat. This is probably where he's meant to play. He still has to do defense, and it is always a defense-first position if you need to, but this puts him in a much more attacking position. It will give everybody in midfield an extra outlet to look for him because he's going to be pushing up, taking out that left-handed wide space much more often, and helping out support the attack and getting into danger positions. So this also benefits Theo and makes Milan much more dangerous. Just imagine Theo booking it down on the left side and having Benacer and Lucas Paqueta or Hakan Çalhanoğlu being able to look for Theo, as well as being able to look for Leao, Rebic, Ibrahimovic, or Castillejo on the right side. Now getting to the right side, this does maybe not put Samu Castillejo in the best position possible for him. I think he is better either as a mid or as a right wing. So maybe right wing back isn't the best, but I think he can definitely still do it. He has a great work rate, high work rate all day up and down the field, and he has the pace and stamina to do it. So I think he can still be a very valuable piece there, and I would still start him there. The good thing too is that if he's not starting there, say he's tired or we need to use a backup, he's not doing well, the new signing Alexis Salamakers I think would do very well here. It puts him in that role where, yes, you're still playing defense just like Theo, but you can now use your attacking prowess to cross the ball, get into danger areas, contribute to the attack. As well as this would help out Andrea Conti, who's not the best defensively, but when he was back at Atalanta was a great down the field attacking wingback, and this might just get a little bit of his mojo back to where he was such a top-rated player, and I think he can get back there. So I believe this helps out that whole row a ton, but most importantly, I think it helps out that attacking midfield spot massively. And the biggest thing is it opens up the opportunity for three players, Çalhanoğlu, Bonaventura, and Lucas Paqueta, to all kind of trade off of this spot and actually be played in their ideal positions and really add a beautiful creative threat to Milan's game that they don't really have right now. Additionally, it keeps the two-striker system up top, which is wonderful, so nothing really changes as far as that goes, which is really the main reason why we changed to a 4-4-2, is to keep two strikers up top, and this does not change that. As I was saying, the biggest threat, the biggest risk with doing this is that three-man defense is very fragile. If one of those guys gets injured, we're now moving on to trying to play Mattia Gabbia, who I think is actually going to be a good defender, but that's a lot of pressure on him to kind of show up in this aspect. Or we're playing Calabria on the right side, and we sold Rodriguez and we sold Caldara. So if they were still here, this would be ideal, but that part is not ideal. The rest, I do believe, is. The last note I will say is moving to this type of formation, it closes that gap in midfield that right now we seem to have. That big gap between our central defensive midfielders up to our two strikers is a huge gap to cover. And by putting an extra player in there, it really solidifies that midfield. And I am a little bit fearful that is exactly where Inter Milan is going to dominate this game. I think their midfield is going to run the game, and Milan's going to be very lucky if they escape with a draw or if somehow we come up with a win here, which is going to be upcoming. That's going to be in a few days here. That's at least the timeline of what I'm speaking at today. So I think it's going to be a very dangerous game, and my hunch is that Martinez as well as Lukaku are going to be running primarily through the middle. Yes, there'll be some attacks down the right side because we don't really have great right backs, but the middle is going to be exploited, and there's going to be a lot of pressure. on those players to really show up. So I really would love to see us at least try this 3-4-1-2 formation. I think it solves a lot of our problems right now while putting players in their best positions. So thank you for listening to me. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any formations that you wish that we would try. You can even draw out a little diagram or whatnot and kind of see what you think, and I'll comment on it, reach out to you and whatnot, and let you know my thoughts. So hopefully you enjoyed this more tactical discussion, and we'll see you next time. Take care.